The outer colonies had gone quiet, and the silence was heavy. No messages, no warnings, no signals of any kind. Traders, explorers, and research stations had been vanishing for months, one after another, leaving only drifting debris in the endless darkness of space. The people back on Earth watched and waited, unsure of what was happening but sensing that something terrible had begun. The first reports were simple. A small research station on the edge of the Kuiper Belt stopped sending its regular check-in transmissions. At first, no one thought it was unusual. Equipment failed. Power systems died. Space was full of strange accidents. But soon, more stations went silent. Trade ships stopped responding. Even long-range communication probes failed to return their data. By the time the alarms began to sound in the Earth Federation command centers, it was clear that this was not an accident. Something was out there and it was hunting them. The commanders on Earth held emergency meetings. Holographic screens flickered with data from satellites and deep space scanners. A map of the outer colonies filled the room, and every blinking light that represented a station or a ship had gone dark. No one knew what had caused it. Scientists argued, strategists debated, and political leaders worried about the panic that would surely follow if this reached the general population. The truth was terrifying, but the decision was unanimous. Earth would respond. For decades, there had been whispers of a secret fleet, a project so carefully hidden that only a handful of people even knew it existed. The ships were built for speed, stealth, and unimaginable power. They were designed not for exploration, not for trade, and not even for defense against known threats. They were created to strike first, to end wars before they began, to act as a shield when everything else failed. The fleet had been hidden in Earth's shadow orbit, cloaked from all detection, waiting for the day it would be needed. That day had come. In the command centers, crews prepared the fleet for activation. Ships that had slept for decades powered, their engines for the first time in a generation. Lights glowed softly on their hulls and energy thrummed through corridors built for the most elite crews in human history. Every pilot, technician, and officer had trained their entire lives for this moment, though none of them had known when it would arrive. They moved with a quiet intensity, knowing that whatever awaited them in the dark reaches of space would not give mercy or warning. Back on Earth, people were unaware of the preparations happening above them. Life went on in cities, towns, and villages. Children played, workers labored, and the hum of daily life continued. No one knew that somewhere, high above, the most powerful fleet humanity had ever built was preparing to enter a war that had already claimed thousands of lives. From the surface, Earth seemed calm, but above, the atmosphere of tension was electric. Every officer and crew member knew the weight of what they carried. This mission was not a drill, not an exercise, not a training simulation. It was real, and failure was unthinkable. The fleet's captain of operations walked the bridge of the command ship, observing the crews as they ran final checks. The humans aboard these ships were the best of the best. Some had been born into military families. Others had been recruited from the top scientific academies. Each one carried a sense of duty that was almost palpable. Their eyes were sharp, their movements precise. There was no fear in their expressions, only focus. They had been preparing for this their entire lives, and now the moment had come to see if all their training would hold up against whatever awaited them. Communication. Channels were silent. There would be no chatter, no casual messages, no jokes to lighten the tension. Silence was part of the plan. The fleet would enter the outer colonies undetected, moving as one massive unit through the empty space between worlds. Any sound, any signal, any mistake could alert the enemy. The commanders knew this. They had studied the patterns of the unknown, threat for weeks, analyzing the debris and trying to understand what kind of force could strike so efficiently, so ruthlessly, and leave no survivors behind. As the fleet moved into position, the crew observed the field of destruction below. Old satellites, abandoned stations, and wrecked ships floated like ghosts in the black void. The human fleet had never encountered anything like it. It was clear that this was not a natural disaster. The destruction had intelligence behind it, a predator-like precision that sent chills down the spine of even the most experienced officers. The humans knew that they were stepping into the lair of something that had already proven it could strike without warning and without mercy. The first probe ships were launched to scan ahead, moving like tiny sparks against the vast darkness. They sent back images and data, but the results only confirmed what everyone feared. The enemy was not just strong, it was intelligent. It adapted quickly, seemed to anticipate moves, and left no trace of itself beyond the debris it created. Some of the crew felt a sense of dread, but they did not show it. Dread had no place here. Every human aboard knew that fear could be lethal. The only thing that mattered was precision, speed, and absolute focus. Hours passed as the fleet moved closer to the edge of the war zone. Each crew member went through the motions with mechanical perfection, but in their hearts the gravity of what was coming pressed down on them. They were not just going to face the enemy, they were going to enter a battlefield that no human had survived before. And yet, despite the tension, there was a quiet pride. They were part of something larger than themselves. They were humanity's last line of defense, the shield that could protect millions of lives in the colonies. The atmosphere on the bridge was tense but disciplined. Every eye watched the screens, every hand moved with purpose. Engineers monitored the ship's power cores, scientists analyzed enemy traces, and commanders coordinated the fleet's formation. Everything had to be perfect. There was no room for error. The human fleet was a machine of war, but it was also a symbol of hope. They carried the weight of countless lives of entire colonies and of Earth itself, and in that moment, every person aboard knew that history would remember what they were about to do. As the fleet reached the border of the silent colonies, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Space was dark, but the emptiness was filled with the unseen presence of the enemy. The humans could not see it yet, but they could feel it. Something was waiting, watching, and calculating, and somewhere deep within that darkness, the enemy would soon notice the approaching fleet. The final order was given. Engines hummed to full power, weapons systems came online, and the fleet began to move forward in perfect formation. There was no hesitation. There was no doubt. The humans aboard these ships had trained for decades, prepared for this exact moment, and they were ready. Whatever waited for them in the void would soon learn that humanity had been watching, waiting, and preparing as well. And so the silent war zone, once a place of fear and death, was about to see the arrival of the human fleet. They were coming not as victims, not as fleeing colonists, but as the force that would decide the fate of the war before it had even truly begun. The stillness of space trembled in anticipation, and for the first time in months, there was a sense of hope, faint but undeniable. Humanity was coming, and they were ready to face whatever lurked in the shadows. The human fleet had entered the edge of the outer colonies, a place that should have been bustling with life, yet now was eerily silent. Stations that once orbited icy planets floated like tombstones, their lights extinguished, their communication erased dead. Even from this distance, the crew could see signs of the devastation: hulls torn apart, debris drifting slowly in the cold vacuum, and strange burn patterns that did not match any human technology. The humans aboard the fleet understood one simple truth: this was not the work of accident or neglect. This was calculated. From the command ship, the captain observed the fleet through the massive viewport. Hundreds of vessels moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Each ship carried specialized weaponry, advanced sensors, and energy cores powerful enough to reshape the very matter around them. This was humanity's secret weapon, kept hidden for decades, its existence known only to a select few on Earth. And now, for the first time, it would be tested. The tension was thick on every bridge, but there was no fear. Fear had been replaced by discipline and a sense of duty. Each officer and crew member knew their role. Pilots monitored engine output and navigational trajectories, while engineers ensured that every power system was operating within optimal parameters. Scientists observed the debris field, analyzing every fragment for traces of the unknown enemy. And commanders coordinated the fleet's approach, calculating the risk of detection and ensuring that every ship would be in perfect position when the moment came. No one spoke casually. Communication was precise and purposeful. Every order was clear, every response concise. Even in the quiet of space, the human fleet moved like a single organism, responding instantly to any change in the environment. And the environment was unpredictable. Strange energy readings appeared on the sensors, signals that defied explanation, movements in the debris field that suggested something alive and intelligent was watching them. The crew felt it in their bones. The enemy was aware. The first probe drones were deployed. They moved silently through the dark expanse, scanning the remains of destroyed colonies and ships. Their cameras returned images of twisted metal and frozen bodies, but nothing else. For hours, the drones moved through the field, careful not to provoke a response. Then suddenly, the sensors detected something different. Energy readings spiked in patterns that suggested intelligence. The enemy was not dormant. It was observing, learning, and preparing to strike. The captain of the command ship called a meeting with the fleet's top officers. Holographic displays projected over the center of the room, showing the paths of every vessel, the locations of debris, and the sudden spikes of energy. "We are being watched," the captain said calmly, but with authority. "The enemy knows we are here. They have sensed us. We proceed as planned. Maintain formation. Prepare for engagement." Orders were relayed instantly to every ship. Engines hummed, weapon systems came online, and shields flared briefly as the energy cores adjusted to full power. The human fleet moved as one, silent and precise toward the heart of the destruction. No ship lagged behind, no vessel acted independently. This was the culmination of decades of planning, training, and technological development. Humanity had prepared for this moment, and every member of the fleet knew it. As they approached the center of the war zone, the crew could see the true scale of the devastation. Entire colonies had been wiped out, leaving only drifting remnants. The enemy had left no survivors, and yet something was moving among the debris. Shadows flitted past the sensors, shapes that did not match any known species or technology. They were fast, unpredictable, and deadly. The fleet maintained its approach, waiting for the right moment to reveal their strength. The captain gave the order to tighten formation. Ships moved closer together, creating a defensive perimeter while keeping all weapons ready. Engineers adjusted the energy cores to handle maximum output, while weapons officers tested the targeting systems with rapid simulations. Every crew member was focused, aware that the first contact could determine the outcome of the entire mission. The unknown enemy was strong, but the humans were stronger, smarter, and ready to strike with precision. Time seemed to stretch as the fleet moved closer. The stars around them appeared distant and cold, but the tension aboard each ship was palpable. Some crew members thought of their families back on Earth, while others focused entirely on the mission. Every individual was aware of the stakes. Failure was not an option. Humanity's presence here was not just a matter of survival. It was a statement. They would not allow the colonies to be destroyed. They would not allow the unknown enemy to spread fear and death. Suddenly, the first contact was made. Sensors detected movement, millions of tiny shapes swarming in patterns that suggested coordination and intelligence. The enemy was aggressive but not reckless. It approached cautiously. Testing the human fleet's defenses, the crew watched in silence, analyzing every motion, every energy signature. They understood that this initial contact was a test. The enemy wanted to understand them before striking in full force. The captain gave the next order: maintain position and continue observation. The fleet did not respond immediately with weapons fire. Instead, they focused on data collection. High-resolution scanners mapped the enemy formations, while sensors measured energy emissions and movement patterns. The humans learned more in those moments than any probe could have gathered over weeks. They understood the enemy's speed, its reflexes, and its likely attack patterns. Knowledge, they knew, was the first step toward victory. Hours passed in this tense standoff. The enemy did not attack outright, but its presence was undeniable. Shadowy shapes flitted through the debris, testing the limits of the fleet's detection systems. The humans remained calm, disciplined, and focused. They had trained for this, and their preparation paid off. Every scan, every measurement, every observation was feeding into the fleet's tactical systems, ready to be used when the moment of engagement arrived. Finally, the captain made a decision. "We have enough information," the order came. "Prepare to engage." Weapons systems hummed as the fleet powered up to full combat readiness. Energy beams flared briefly in the dark, shields activated, and targeting systems locked onto multiple points within the enemy formation. Every ship moved in perfect coordination, ready to strike simultaneously. The humans were no longer observers. They were about to become the hunters. The crew felt a mix of anticipation and determination. There was no fear, no hesitation, only focus. Each individual understood the power they carried and the responsibility it entailed. They were not just fighting for themselves or for Earth. They were fighting for entire colonies, for lives that had been threatened, and for the survival of humanity's presence in the outer systems. Every breath, every heartbeat, and every action was directed toward a single goal: victory. And then, as if sensing the change in the human fleet, the enemy reacted. Shadowy forms began to converge, moving faster, shifting unpredictably. It became clear that the enemy was preparing for a confrontation, perhaps for the first time realizing that the humans were not what they expected. The fleet responded instantly. Weapon systems powered to maximum, energy shields flared, and the first signals of human force radiated across the void. The moment of engagement was near. As the human fleet moved closer to the heart of the destroyed colonies, the crew aboard every ship held their positions, waiting for the exact moment to unleash their power. Sensors continued to track the enemy's movements, and tactical systems calculated every possible outcome. The humans were patient, knowing that timing was everything. A premature strike could alert the enemy and give it a chance to escape or counterattack. Precision, coordination, and timing were the keys to success. The calm before the storm stretched across the fleet. The darkness of space seemed heavier, the debris field more ominous. But the humans were ready. They had trained for years for this exact scenario. They understood the stakes, the risks, and the potential consequences of failure. And yet within that awareness, there was also confidence. They were ready to show the enemy the strength of humanity, the culmination of decades of preparation, technology, and human ingenuity. And so, with engines humming, weapons online, and shields activated, the human fleet waited on the edge of the war zone. The unknown enemy had been observed, analyzed, and studied. The humans had learned its patterns, measured its strengths, and prepared for its reactions. What had begun as a silent approach to a destroyed colony was now the calm before a decisive moment that would change the fate of the outer systems forever. Every member of the fleet knew one truth. The engagement that was about to begin would demonstrate not just the strength of their ships, but the strength of humanity itself. The silent war zone was about to witness the arrival of a force unlike anything it had seen before. And in the hearts of every human aboard those ships, there was certainty, focus, and determination. Humanity had arrived, and it was ready. The human fleet moved forward into the heart of the war zone, and the scene before them was unlike anything any crew had imagined. The debris from destroyed colonies and ships stretched endlessly, a tangled graveyard of metal and frozen bodies. Some of the ships appeared crushed, some had massive gashes burned through them, and some were only shadows drifting silently in the void. The airless silence of space seemed to weigh down on the human crews, and yet they pressed forward, disciplined, steady, and unafraid. From the command ship, the captain watched the displays, noting every anomaly and energy reading. The sensors flickered constantly, picking up fast-moving shadows, shapes that did not belong to anything known in human science. They were unpredictable and aggressive, and yet they had not fully attacked. It was clear to the fleet's commanders that the enemy was studying them, trying to learn the limits of human technology before committing to an engagement. The crew on every ship was tense but focused. Pilots adjusted their courses to keep the fleet perfectly aligned. Weapons officers ran final calibrations on energy beams, rail cannons, and plasma lances, ensuring that every system was optimized for the moment they would need it most. Engineers monitored power outputs, ready to handle any sudden spikes or overloads. The humans had prepared for this for years, but the unpredictability of the enemy added a tension that no simulation could replicate. As the fleet advanced, a shadow moved faster than anything the sensors had recorded before. It darted between the floating wreckage like liquid, flowing with almost intelligent intent. The energy readings spiked sharply. The enemy had noticed them fully. The calm observation period was over. The humans had prepared for this, but nothing could erase the sudden awareness that the first real contact was imminent. The captain gave the order. Maintain formation, prepare to engage, and do not fire unless absolutely necessary. The fleet moved as one, engines humming and shields flaring in synchrony. Every crew member held their breath, their training taking over as instincts sharpened. The human fleet was designed for speed, precision, and coordination. And now, in the frozen, silent void of the war zone, it would be tested like never before. From the perspective of the smaller ships, the enemy appeared almost alive. Shapes twisted and flowed unpredictably, moving in patterns that defied logic. Some forms split into smaller units, darting around the fleet to test its boundaries, while others stayed just out of range, watching, calculating. The humans could feel it in their bones. The enemy was intelligent, dangerous, and aware. But the humans were not intimidated. They had trained for this, prepared for this, and now they would see the results of decades of preparation. The first direct encounter came without warning. One of the enemy shapes darted toward a smaller human vessel at incredible speed. Its form twisted like liquid metal, striking with precision. The ship's shields flared as energy impacts rippled across its hull. The crew inside felt the vibration, saw the readings spike on their monitors, and knew that the enemy had tested the fleet's defenses. They had not expected a counterattack so early, but the human fleet was ready. Instantly, sensors locked onto the attacker. Weapon systems calculated trajectories, energy cores powered up, and within moments, the attacking enemy shape was neutralized. It disintegrated into harmless particles, leaving behind no trace of its form. The crew exhaled collectively, the tension breaking for just a moment, but they knew this was only the beginning. The enemy had tested them once. There would be more. The fleet continued forward, moving into tighter formations. The larger warships took central positions, creating a protective barrier for the smaller vessels. Communication remained calm and precise, every order repeated and confirmed. Engineers monitored fluctuations in energy fields caused by the enemy's presence. Scientists adjusted targeting algorithms, and weapons officers ran simulations for every possible move the enemy could make. Humanity had entered the war zone, prepared to strike, and now it was time to learn the enemy's limits. Suddenly, a massive form emerged from the shadows. It was unlike anything recorded in human history, massive, dark, and fluid, shifting as if it had no solid body. The sensors struggled to maintain a reading. Energy readings were off the charts, the sheer size and speed of the creature making it impossible to anticipate its moves fully. The crew froze for a moment, the scale of what they were facing finally sinking in. This was no ordinary opponent. It was a predator, powerful, intelligent, and fast. The captain gave the order, engage. Weapons powered to full output, shields strengthened, and targeting systems locked onto multiple points on the massive enemy form. The human fleet fired simultaneously, dozens of beams of energy and projectiles striking in perfect coordination. The enemy twisted and shifted to avoid the attack, but the fleet's precision was unmatched. For the first time, a real battle began in the war zone. The fight was unlike any simulation. The enemy responded almost instantly, moving faster than sensors could fully track, striking at multiple points of the fleet. Smaller ships dodged, engines flaring, while larger ships held their ground, shields absorbing impacts that could have destroyed ordinary vessels. The humans had never faced anything like this, but they were prepared. Every strike they made was calculated, every movement anticipated. The enemy was powerful, but humanity had one advantage: strategy and coordination. On board, The command ship, the captain watched every movement with intense focus. Tactical officers provided constant updates, plotting enemy patterns, predicting its next strikes, and coordinating the fleet's responses. Every ship responded in perfect unison, shifting position, returning fire, and maintaining the perimeter. It was a dance of precision, technology, and human ingenuity. The enemy was strong, but it was also predictable once its patterns were studied carefully. The battle raged for what felt like hours, though in reality it was only minutes. The enemy struck with speed and intelligence, but the human fleet adapted instantly. Beams of energy cut through shadows, projectiles struck with perfect accuracy, and the massive enemy forms began to falter under the relentless, coordinated assault. For the first time, the humans felt a spark of confidence. They were not just surviving, they were dominating. Crew members aboard the smaller ships shouted in controlled urgency, adjusting course and firing weapons in rapid succession. Engineers worked tirelessly to keep energy cores at peak performance. Scientists analyzed every new movement, feeding data back into targeting systems. Even in the chaos of battle, discipline remained absolute. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades, and every training exercise, every simulation, every late night of planning was paying off now. Then, the enemy made a bold move. A massive form surged toward the heart of the human fleet, attempting to strike the command ship directly. Sensors screamed alerts as shields flared, weapons locked on, and engines roared to life. In a single, coordinated response, the fleet unleashed everything it had. Beams, projectiles, and energy discharges struck simultaneously, surrounding the massive enemy form. The strike hit with such force that it fragmented into smaller shapes, disintegrating completely, leaving only drifting energy residue in its wake. The silence after that first major strike was almost deafening. For a moment, no one moved. The crew watched, breathing heavily, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. They had done it. They had survived the first major engagement, and they had learned something crucial. The enemy could be defeated, but only with focus, coordination, and absolute precision. Humanity's preparation had worked. Their technology, training, and strategy had proven themselves against an opponent, unlike any before. Even as the immediate danger subsided, the fleet did not relax. Sensors continued to sweep the area. Weapons remained online, and engines were ready for instant maneuvering. The enemy was still out there, and more could appear at any moment. The humans had learned its patterns, but they had not seen everything it could do. Every crew member knew that vigilance could not be abandoned. The Warzone remained dangerous, and the true test was only beginning. As the fleet moved deeper into the heart of the destroyed colonies, the crew began to notice patterns in the enemy's behavior. It had intelligence, but it was reactive, responding to the humans' movements rather than initiating complex strategies. That was the edge humanity needed. By studying, adapting, and striking with precision, the human fleet could control the battle. And they would. Humanity's presence in the outer colonies was no longer passive observation. They had entered the war zone fully prepared to take control. By the end of the engagement, the first contact had been decisively won by the humans. The enemy forms that had attacked were destroyed or dispersed. The fleet's formation remained intact, no ships lost, no major damage sustained. Crew members shared looks of relief and quiet pride. They had faced the unknown, measured its strength, and proven that the human fleet could stand against even the deadliest threats. But the humans knew that this was only the beginning. The war zone was vast, and the enemy had not yet revealed all of its power. Every officer, every crew member, and every pilot understood that what they had accomplished was a foothold, a demonstration of strength and precision. The true battle was still ahead, and humanity would face it with the same determination. Focus. The human fleet had survived the first contact, but the sense of relief was brief. The war zone stretched endlessly before them, filled with debris, broken stations, and the remnants of ships that once carried lives. Yet, despite the destruction, the enemy was still out there lurking among the shadows. The humans knew that what they had faced so far was only a fraction of the force they would encounter. What waited deeper in the void would be more dangerous, more unpredictable, and potentially far deadlier. From the command ship, the captain studied the sensors carefully. Every blip, every movement was tracked in real time, every anomaly measured and calculated. Tactical officers pointed out clusters of energy signatures that suggested enemy formations, while scientists analyzed the patterns for weaknesses. The enemy was fast, intelligent, and coordinated, but it had limits. The humans' advantage was their preparation, their discipline, and their ability to strike with unmatched precision. The captain addressed the entire fleet through secure channels. His voice was calm but firm, carrying across hundreds of ships. "We have made first contact and survived. Our enemy is strong, but we are stronger. Engage on my order. Precision, coordination, and focus will be our weapons. We strike together. We strike now." Every officer acknowledged the command. There was no hesitation, no doubt. The human fleet had trained for this moment, and every individual knew the consequences of failure. Engines flared as the fleet moved into tighter formation, weapon systems powering to full strength. Energy shields glowed, reflecting the faint light of distant stars, while rail cannons and plasma lances hummed with readiness. Smaller ships maneuvered around the larger vessels, creating a protective perimeter while maintaining offensive capability. The humans were no longer observers. They were predators entering the heart of the enemy's hunting ground, ready to assert their dominance. And then the enemy attacked in full force. Massive shapes emerged from the shadows, moving faster than the sensors could track. They twisted and flowed unpredictably, attacking simultaneously from multiple directions. The fleet was surrounded, but the humans did not panic. Every movement had been practiced countless times. Every scenario had been simulated. The fleet responded instantly, weapons firing, shields flaring, engines maneuvering to counter the assault. The first wave of attacks struck with terrifying speed. Smaller ships dodged the enemy's lightning-fast strikes, their engines burning at full capacity. Weapons fired in perfect coordination, energy beams slicing through the dark shapes, fragmenting them into harmless particles. Even as some enemy forms came close to the human hulls, the shields held firm, absorbing impacts that would have destroyed ordinary vessels. The humans had been ready for this, and their preparation was proving itself in the heat of battle. From the command ship, the captain observed every movement. Tactical officers calculated trajectories and targeting priorities in real time, ensuring that every strike hit its mark. Sensors mapped the enemy's speed, strength, and behavior, feeding critical data back to every ship in the fleet. It was a fight like no other, a combination of raw power, advanced technology, and human instinct. The enemy was formidable, but humanity had patience, strategy, and unity on its side. As the battle continued, the enemy's tactics began to show patterns. They moved with intelligence, but always reacted to the humans' actions rather than initiating complex strategies of their own. The fleet adapted instantly, shifting positions, altering targeting sequences, and concentrating fire on the most dangerous threats. Every attack was calculated, every movement precise. The humans were no longer defending. They were taking control of the battle. The enemy attempted a bold maneuver. One massive form surged toward the fleet's center, targeting the command ship directly. Sensors screamed warnings and weapon systems powered to maximum. Engines flared as the command ship moved to intercept, shields glowing brightly as the enemy struck. Energy beams fired from multiple ships simultaneously, striking with incredible accuracy. The massive enemy form twisted, flowed, and attempted to escape, but it was too late. The coordinated assault tore it apart, disintegrating it into a cloud of harmless particles. The fleet did not pause. Every victory was immediately followed by adjustments for the next attack. Smaller enemy forms darted between the human ships, attempting to exploit weaknesses in formation or shield coverage. Pilots maneuvered with skill and precision, dodging strikes while maintaining firing solutions. Weapons officers adjusted targeting in real time, engineers balanced power between shields and weapons, and scientists monitored every change in the enemy's behavior. The humans moved as one, a single deadly organism. For the first time, the scale of human power became evident even to the crew. Hundreds of ships, working in perfect coordination, unleashed a combination of firepower, strategy, and intelligence that the enemy could not match. Energy beams tore through enemy ranks, rail cannons shattered massive forms, and antimatter projectiles vaporized anything in their path. The enemy had come expecting chaos, but instead found order, precision, and overwhelming force. Even in the chaos of battle, humanity's discipline shone. Crew members worked tirelessly, relaying information, adjusting systems, and anticipating the enemy's next move. No one panicked. No one faltered. The humans had trained for decades for this exact moment, and every second of preparation now paid off. Every strike, every maneuver, every calculation contributed to the larger goal: total control of the war zone. The enemy responded with desperation. Forms swirled in unpredictable patterns, attacking in waves, attempting to breach the fleet's defenses. But the humans were relentless. They had studied the enemy, adapted to its movements, and prepared for its speed. Every attack was met with countermeasures, every threat neutralized before it could cause significant damage. The fleet had become a machine of war, efficient, unstoppable, and precise. From the command ship, the captain watched the battle unfold with quiet pride. Tactical officers provided constant updates, highlighting clusters of enemy forms and suggesting points of concentrated fire. Sensors mapped every movement, every strike, every retreat. The humans were learning faster than the enemy could adapt. They were not just surviving, they were dominating, and the crew could feel it. The tide of battle had shifted decisively in humanity's favor. After what felt like an eternity, but was only minutes, the enemy began to falter. Massive forms that had seemed indestructible were reduced to drifting energy clouds. Smaller shapes, scattered and disintegrated under precise coordinated strikes. The fleet remained intact, no major damage sustained, and every ship operating at peak efficiency. The humans had done what no one had believed possible. They had turned the tide. In seconds, demonstrating overwhelming power, discipline, and strategy. Even as the immediate engagement ended, the fleet remained vigilant. Sensors scanned for remaining threats, weapons remained online, and engines were ready to maneuver at a moment's notice. The humans had won the first decisive confrontation, but the war zone was vast, and the enemy's remaining forces could strike again. Every officer and crew member understood that victory was not final. It was a step toward complete control. In the aftermath, the scale of human coordination and power became clear. The fleet had entered the war zone, faced a highly intelligent and deadly enemy, and emerged without losses. The crew shared quiet glances of relief, but there was no celebration. There was only focus. The enemy had underestimated humanity. They had expected hesitation, fear, or chaos. Instead, they found unity, precision, and overwhelming force. The captain issued new orders: maintain formation, continue scanning, and prepare for any remaining threats. The fleet had demonstrated its strength, but the humans knew the war zone was far from neutralized. Energy readings suggested that scattered enemy forces were still active, hiding among debris or regrouping for future attacks. The humans would be ready. They had learned the enemy's patterns, observed its tactics, and proven their ability to respond with speed and precision. As the fleet moved deeper into the heart of the war zone, the crew reflected on what had been accomplished. They had survived the first major engagement, adapted to an unpredictable and deadly enemy, and demonstrated humanity's strength in the void. The humans were no longer merely participants in a battle. They had become the dominant force, capable of controlling the outcome through strategy, discipline, and unity. The silent war zone, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now trembled under the presence of the human fleet. The enemy had encountered its match, a force that moved with intelligence, precision, and relentless determination. The humans had arrived not just to observe or defend, but to dominate and secure the colonies. And they would continue to do so, strike after strike, until every threat was neutralized. Even as they prepared for the next phase, the humans knew that the victory of this engagement was only the beginning. The war zone stretched endlessly. The enemy was still alive in parts, and the full scale of the threat was yet unknown. But the fleet had proven a crucial truth. Humanity, united, disciplined, and prepared, could face the deadliest forces and emerge victorious. The captain gave one final order for the moment: hold position, continue observation, and be ready. The fleet had won the first decisive confrontation, but the humans. The battle had ended, and a strange, heavy silence filled the war zone. Where moments ago chaos had reigned, there was now only the faint glow of drifting debris and the scattered remnants of what had once been a deadly enemy. The human fleet hovered in formation, engines humming softly, shields still active and weapons primed, just in case any threat remained hidden in the shadows. The crew knew that the victory was complete for the moment, but there was no time to relax. The war zone was still dangerous, and the unknown enemy had been underestimated for far too long. From the command ship, the captain observed the scene with a mixture of awe and solemnity. Hundreds of enemy forms had been destroyed or disintegrated in mere minutes, but the true scale of the devastation was only now becoming clear. Entire fleets, colonies, and stations had been reduced to nothing. The humans had arrived in a place where hope had already been extinguished, and in a matter of moments they had rewritten the balance of power. It was a display of precision and strength unlike any in recorded history. Crew members aboard the ships were still tense, their minds racing as they processed the battle's outcome. Pilots checked their systems, ensuring that engines, shields, and weapons were all functioning perfectly. Engineers examined the energy cores for any strain caused by the intense firing sequences. Scientists continued to analyze the remains of the enemy, mapping every particle, every energy residue, and every shadow to learn more about what they had faced. Humanity had not only survived, they had gained knowledge that could shape future encounters. The first scans revealed something remarkable. The enemy's energy cores, once thought indestructible, had been completely neutralized. Their ability to regenerate or adapt had been halted. The humans had struck with a combination of speed, intelligence, and coordination that the enemy could not match. It was a decisive victory, a demonstration that preparation and strategy could overcome even the most terrifying opponents. The fleet's officers shared quiet glances of disbelief, knowing that they had witnessed a force unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Even as they marveled at the victory, the humans remained cautious. The war zone was vast, and there could be hidden threats yet to emerge. Smaller enemy forms, scattered and fragmented, might still pose danger if left unchecked. The captain ordered the fleet to spread out slightly, maintaining visual and sensor contact with each other while scanning the surrounding space for any signs of life. Every crew member knew that complacency could be deadly, and vigilance remained their most critical defense. Communication channels were opened carefully, allowing crews to report what they had seen and experienced during the battle. The voices were calm, controlled, and precise. Pilots described evasive maneuvers. Officers reported the status of weapons and shields, and scientists detailed the patterns and reactions of the enemy. Each report added to the growing understanding of what had been faced and how humanity had triumphed. The fleet was not just surviving, it was learning, adapting, and growing stronger with every moment. The aftermath of the battle revealed the human fleet's true scale of power. From orbit, the war zone looked like a glittering field of destruction. Enemy remnants floated silently among the debris, but the humans had ensured that no immediate threat remained. Smaller vessels began to navigate carefully through the wreckage, collecting data and surveying the area. They mapped every fragment, every energy residue, and every possible danger, ensuring that no surprises would emerge in the future. The captain addressed the fleet again, his voice carrying calm authority. Across every ship, the first engagement is complete. We have proven our strength, our coordination, and our ability to dominate this battlefield. The enemy has been neutralized for now, but we remain vigilant. Continue scanning, continue analyzing, and prepare for any contingencies. Humanity has arrived in this war zone, and we will not falter. Every officer acknowledged the command. There was no hesitation. The humans understood that their presence here was more than a demonstration of power. It was a statement to every observer across the stars. As the fleet moved cautiously through the debris field, the crew observed the lasting effects of the conflict. Energy readings slowly dissipated, enemy cores disintegrated completely, and the shadows that had haunted the colonies were gone. It was a moment of profound clarity. Humanity had stepped into a place of chaos and fear, and through focus, preparation, and unity had restored order. The crew felt a quiet pride, but they knew that pride alone would not protect them. Vigilance and discipline remained paramount. The humans began to conduct detailed surveys of the outer colonies. They scanned the ruined stations, analyzed damaged ships, and searched for any survivors. Evidence of the enemy's previous attacks was everywhere: shattered hulls, empty corridors, and life support systems long dead. The humans moved with care, not out of fear of the enemy. Most of it had been destroyed, but to honor the lives that had been lost, and to gather information that could prevent future tragedies. Every scan, every observation, every carefully logged detail was part of humanity's methodical approach to understanding this war zone. Some crew members reflected quietly on the scale of the battle. They had witnessed unimaginable destruction, but also the power of human coordination and intelligence. The enemy had been formidable, terrifying, and unpredictable, yet the humans had adapted instantly, demonstrating skill and strategy that no simulation could replicate. The experience left them with a deep respect for their own capabilities and for the training, preparation, and discipline that had carried them through the engagement. Despite the victory, the captain reminded everyone that this was only the beginning. The enemy might regroup, adapt, or evolve. Their intelligence, though disrupted, had not been completely understood. The fleet's sensors detected faint energy traces, suggesting that remnants of the enemy could still exist in hidden pockets of the war zone. The humans remained on high alert, ready to respond instantly to any sign of renewed hostility. This was not over, and they knew it. The first reports from the smaller reconnaissance ships brought further insight. They had found energy signatures that suggested the enemy had used some form of advanced camouflage or cloaking technology. While the humans had destroyed the visible threats, these remnants might still pose danger if left unchecked. Engineers and scientists worked together to develop strategies for detecting and neutralizing any hidden forces. The human fleet had not only fought, they were preparing to ensure that no threat could ever rise again from the shadows. The fleet began to regroup, maintaining formation while continuing the sweep of the area. Communication between ships was constant but precise, each report carefully logged and shared. Tactical officers analyzed enemy behavior during the battle, noting weaknesses, patterns, and potential vulnerabilities. Every observation added to humanity's growing knowledge of the enemy and their capabilities. The humans were not just survivors, they were strategists, learning from the encounter to ensure that no threat would catch them off guard again. Even in the midst of this methodical analysis, the crew could feel the significance of what had been accomplished. They had entered a war zone where entire colonies had been destroyed, where fear had ruled for months, and where the enemy had hunted without mercy. In mere minutes of engagement, the human fleet had demonstrated not only the power of their technology but also the unity, discipline, and focus of their crews. Humanity had arrived as a force that could not be ignored. The captain addressed the fleet once more. "We have secured this sector for the moment. Continue scanning, continue surveying, and continue learning. Every piece of data we collect strengthens our position and ensures that humanity's presence here is secure. This war zone has seen our strength. Let us make certain it will remember it." The response was a chorus of acknowledgement from the fleet's officers and crew. There was no celebration, only focus, determination, and readiness for what might come next. As the fleet moved through the debris, smaller ships conducted detailed scans of the destroyed stations and vessels. They recorded the patterns of destruction, analyzed the remnants of enemy attacks, and mapped safe corridors for future navigation. Even in this moment of victory, the humans demonstrated care, precision, and respect for the environment they were operating in. They were not here to destroy recklessly. They were here to assert control and protect what remained of the colonies. Crew members aboard the larger ships worked tirelessly to maintain readiness. Shields were monitored, energy cores stabilized, and weapons systems kept online in case of surprise attacks. The humans had learned that in a war zone, complacency could be deadly. Even as the enemy lay in ruins, the fleet remained vigilant, prepared to respond to any sign of renewed threat. This discipline was part of what had made the human victory possible in the first place. The aftermath of the battle also revealed a profound truth about human coordination and strategy. The fleet had operated as a single entity, each ship and crew member playing a crucial role in the outcome. Smaller ships had scouted, larger vessels had protected, weapons systems had coordinated, and command decisions had been executed flawlessly. The humans had demonstrated not only technological superiority, but also the power of unity, focus, and disciplined action. As the human fleet had survived, adapted, and dominated the war zone. What had begun as a tense approach through debris and destroyed colonies had become a decisive victory. The enemy had been neutralized, their remnants scattered or destroyed, and the fleet had proven the power of human coordination, intelligence, and discipline. But the mission was not over. The humans knew that their presence in the war zone sent a message far beyond what sensors could detect. It was a message to every corner of the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and it would not be underestimated. From the command ship, the captain observed the silent expanse of space stretching ahead. Energy readings were stable, enemy remnants negligible, and the fleet intact. Every ship was in position, every crew member alert and ready. The battle had tested their abilities, but it had also strengthened them. Crew members moved with calm precision, adjusting shields, checking engines, and ensuring that weapon systems remained primed. The humans were in control, not only of the fleet, but of the entire sector they had secured. The first task was to consolidate their victory. Smaller ships were deployed to collect debris, analyze the remnants of enemy technology, and record every anomaly in the war zone. Scientists and engineers worked side by side, understanding how the enemy had operated and how humanity's strategies had outmatched them. Every piece of information was logged, every discovery noted, and every lesson learned would be applied to future engagements. Humanity was not just a powerful force, it was also learning faster than any other species in the galaxy. The captain held a meeting with top officers to discuss the next steps. Holographic displays projected the battlefields, highlighting areas of destruction, enemy remnants, and the positions of the human fleet. "We have secured this sector, but we are not done," the captain said calmly. "The galaxy is watching. Every action we take now will shape how humanity is perceived in the outer systems. We proceed with caution, with discipline, and with the same unity that has carried us through this engagement. Prepare the fleet for movement. We are not leaving until we understand the full extent of this war zone." As the fleet moved deeper into the sector, crew members observed the lasting consequences of the battle. Entire colonies had been erased, their structures reduced to drifting fragments. The humans had destroyed the enemy's ability to threaten these areas, but the devastation was sobering. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to assess the possibility of reconstruction, while security teams ensured that no hidden threats remained. Humanity had brought power and safety, but they also understood the cost of war. Communication channels opened to allow every ship to share their observations and discoveries. Pilots described the precise movements that had kept them alive. Weapons, officers highlighted key strikes that had neutralized enemy forms, and scientists recorded unexpected phenomena in the debris fields. Every report strengthened the fleet's understanding and improved coordination. The humans had not only survived, they had learned, adapted, and grown stronger. The first reconnaissance flights found pockets of strange energy signals, faint, but persistent. While the enemy had been largely annihilated, these signals suggested remnants hiding in deeper, unexplored regions. The captain decided to send a small task force to investigate. These ships moved cautiously, scanning carefully for threats while the main fleet maintained a protective formation. Every move was deliberate, every decision measured. The humans understood that a single mistake could allow a hidden enemy force to strike. Crew members aboard the command ship monitored the task force with precision. Data streamed in continuously, revealing energy fluctuations, unusual particle readings, and remnants of enemy movement patterns. The humans analyzed this data, developing strategies for detecting and neutralizing even the most elusive threats. The fleet's technology, combined with human intelligence and experience from the first engagement, allowed them to predict enemy behavior with remarkable accuracy. Humanity had turned knowledge into a weapon as deadly as any cannon or energy beam. Back aboard the main fleet, the humans began preparing for the final phase of their mission, securing the sector and sending a message across the galaxy. Every ship's systems were optimized, energy cores balanced between weapons and shields, and communication arrays enhanced to transmit signals over vast distances. Humanity was about to demonstrate not only strength, but also presence. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity had survived the outer colonies, had triumphed over a deadly enemy, and was prepared to defend itself anywhere. The captain issued an order to broadcast a clear, deliberate signal across the sector. It was simple, but powerful, a demonstration of humanity's technological, tactical, and strategic capabilities. The signal included high-resolution scans of the fleet, energy readings from destroyed enemy forces, and a message encoded in multiple galactic languages. Humanity was here, united, disciplined, and unstoppable. The transmission would reach systems far beyond the war zone, ensuring that no one would underestimate them again. As the signal propagated, crew members observed reactions on distant sensors. Other species monitoring the region paused to study the human fleet. Energy readings suggested curiosity, apprehension, and even fear. The humans had not only secured the immediate war zone, they had altered the perception of humanity across multiple star systems. The power they had demonstrated was undeniable, but it was their unity, strategy, and discipline that made them formidable in ways no weapon alone could convey. Even after sending the message, the fleet did not relax. Patrols moved through the debris, scanning for any missed remnants. Engineers recalibrated shields, weapon systems, and engines, while scientists continued to study the enemy technology they had recovered. The humans understood that dominance was not achieved by destruction alone. It required control, vigilance, and understanding. Humanity's presence in this sector would remain strong, not through fear alone, but through preparation, intelligence, and unity. Crew members reflected on the significance of their mission. They had entered a war zone filled with death and fear, faced an unknown enemy, and emerged victorious. Entire colonies had been saved from further destruction. The enemy had been neutralized, and humanity had proven itself to the galaxy. There was pride, yes, but it was tempered by responsibility. Every human aboard every ship knew that their actions would shape the future of space beyond Earth. They had shown what humanity was capable of, and now they had to maintain it. As night fell over distant planets in the outer systems, the fleet moved in formation, engines glowing softly, shields humming faintly. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction, silent witnesses to the humans' triumph. Crew members walked the corridors of their ships, checking systems, observing monitors, and quietly reflecting on what they had achieved. The humans had faced the unknown, mastered it, and emerged stronger. They were not just survivors. They were leaders, protectors, and a force that would shape the galaxy's future. The captain issued a final order for the moment. Hold formation, continue scanning, and maintain readiness. Humanity has arrived, and this sector is secure. We will not leave until every threat is understood, every anomaly investigated, and every colony protected. Today we have proven our strength. Tomorrow, we ensure it remains unchallenged. The crew responded with steady affirmation, ready to continue their mission. They understood the gravity of what had been accomplished and the responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. Small ships continued detailed surveys of the debris, mapping every fragment, analyzing energy signatures, and collecting samples of the enemy's technology. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand it, engineers prepared for future enhancements, and tactical officers refined strategies for possible engagements. The humans were not content to simply survive. They were preparing to dominate any future threats, ensuring that their victory would be lasting and absolute. Even in the midst of victory, the humans showed caution. Faint energy readings suggested that the enemy might have attempted to hide advanced technology or prepare for a counterattack. The fleet remained vigilant, aware that a single misstep could allow danger to return. But the humans had learned. From the first engagement, patience, precision, and discipline were their greatest strengths. Every crew member understood that victory was as much about strategy and preparation as it was about firepower. The Warzone, once a place of fear and destruction, now glimmered with order. The human fleet had restored balance, neutralized threats, and demonstrated the power of coordinated action. Sensors detected no active enemy forces, debris fields were mapped and analyzed, and the fleet remained fully operational. Humanity had not just survived, they had secured a region, sent a clear message across the galaxy, and established a foundation for future safety and exploration. As the fleet slowly began to withdraw from the heart of the war zone, crew members reflected on the journey. They had faced an unknown enemy, adapted to its speed and intelligence, and emerged victorious. The outer colonies were safe for now, the enemy had been annihilated, and humanity's presence had been solidified. But more than that, the fleet had demonstrated the essence of humanity itself: unity, discipline, intelligence, and the will to survive and protect. The captain watched the fleet through the